Welcome to the second day of conference, everyone. Today, we begin with Javier Fernandez from Microsoft, who will walk you through everything new in Azure Event Grid. To give you an idea of his community involvement, he has been part of numerous Microsoft-sponsored conferences, such as Microsoft Build, Ignite, etc. Please welcome Javier Fernandez.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? My name is Javier Fernandez. I'm the product manager for Event Grid. And today, we're going to be talking about the use cases in which you could use Event Grid for your integration. I'm going to also be talking about the recently released features, and we're going to be looking into ahead and what is coming feature-wise for Event Grid. At the end, I'm going to have a demo, a quick demo, and then hopefully we're going to have some time for questions and answers. Okay? Let's recap what Clemens explained us yesterday, recapping the concept of events, because events is an overloaded term. It can mean discrete events that are served for announcing that something happened in the system, that resources state change in a resource. So that is discrete events. Or data point series, a stream of data that you need to make sense of that. You need to probably aggregate over a window of time, and then probably take an action based on those insights. Well, what Event Grid was designed for is for discrete events. And again, you can use that for announcing that is a resource in your system, the state has changed. Typically, events are small pieces of messaging. It's not like a large message like in, for example, queuing system. It just has what changed, the event type, and sometimes and usually contains the URI, or always contains the URI. Let me show you what I mean. This is an example for the Cloud Events schema specification. That is what Event Grid supports. You see the first 6 attributes, we call them context attributes. You see the type, the event type, in this case, an order created. The time, which is the time at which the event, the order was created. And then the data object, which is when you are designing your system to communicate, integrate with events, is what you started with this. And usually, again, it has the ID of the URL and how to fetch the state of that resource, in this case, the order. So you receive, subscriber receive that event, look into that URI, and fetches the state of that. So again, the events, you just announce it that something happened. It doesn't usually have the properties of the resource. And the outer, what we call context attributes, envelope properties, are used for routing. For example, and when I say routing, is that Event Grid can look into, you define some filtering criteria. For example, is the type equals to this value, then send it to this destination. But is this other event type, then send it to this other destination. We'll look into that. And then we have data point series. I don't want to get too much into this. Event Grid is not for streaming. That is the point. Really, this is kind of the event brokers that Azure has for your different use cases. If you want to announce something happened in your system, that is Event Grid. For data point series, for the ingestion engine, Event Hubs, Kafka. You are using IoT devices, IoT Hub. And if you want to look into the analytics after you ingested that stream, is Stream Analytics. And this is what Event Grid is. We have two kind of resources. The resources that you see in green is what Event Grid is. We have a topic, which is a resource where you receive events, meaning you are publishing events to an endpoint that the topic exposes. The events land on the topic. Then we have configuration items that we call event subscriptions. By the way, who has used Event Grid? Raise your hand. Oh, wow, good. Well, you don't count, Kevin. Great. So event subscriptions, you configure two things. You configure, other things, but two main things. You configure what kind of events I want to select, meaning filtering criteria. If this property in the event matches this value, then that is the first configuration. Send it to this destination. That is the other aspect of the configuration. So you select events, and then you define where they should go. And you can have up to 500 event subscriptions for topic, okay? One aspect of Event Grid is that it's a pops-up system. So someone publishes events, and subscribers, subscribe to the event. That means that it is not a client that is consuming those events, meaning the clients, those subscribers are not connecting to the broker. They don't know that it exists. The subscribers, the application just exposing an endpoint, and they're just expecting events to come. So, and this is important aspect of pops-up systems like Event Grid. With these kind of integration, you achieve greater decoupling. The subscriber doesn't know who is publishing the events. Actually, we don't even send the user agent information. They're just receiving event. Here is my endpoint, and I'm going to receive some events from somewhere. So the subscribers don't know about the publisher, don't necessarily know about the publisher. So again, with these, you get greater decoupling, and that means greater scalability. They can scale independently, and even reliability. So there is no strong coupling. The only coupling aspect that we have is obviously the subscriber needs to know the schema of the event that is coming. But you are connecting point A with point B. There is some data communicated. Obviously, you need to know the schema for consuming that. So it's not a strong coupling by any means. So that was Event Grid. Then we have event handlers, meaning the destinations that we support. With webhook, you can send events to any destination that Event Grid has network access. And it's through a webhook that we can connect, or you can integrate with Logic Apps. You have functions, you have service bus, event hubs, storage queues, and Azure Relay hybrid connections. So those are the event handlers. Let's look at the use cases. What are your requirements, and what kind of resource you're going to use for Event Grid? OK, let's start simple. You have an application. You want that the state changes in your resources of that application to be announced so that downstream applications can be aware of that and act on that, or completely ignore it. Those subscribing applications can be your own applications as part of your whole architecture of your solution, or it can be third-party endpoints. So you decide that, but you own the topic, you own the event subscription, you configure the event subscription to the destination that you want them to be sent, and boom, you have a simple Event Grid integration. And the kind of resource that supports this is called custom topics, or just topics. It's an ARM resource. And we have two editions of Event Grid. The Cloud Edition, Azure Event Grid, and Azure Event Grid on Kubernetes with Azure Arc. Actually, you can deploy the Event Grid on Kubernetes, but we only support this kind of integration on Kubernetes. We only, so it's very powerful. And life is good with this kind of simple integration until it's not. At some point, in some use case, some requirements, you may have that you are building an application that you are communicating events to many teams in your organization, in your company. So you start with one topic, and then you start creating an event subscription from team A, event subscription for team B, to the application, and so on and so forth. Then you reach the 500 event subscription limit. Okay, and it occurs to you, okay, well, let's just try to segregate these. Let's create a topic for team A, a topic for team B, a topic to team C, and so on and so forth. And that may work, but at some point it's not going to be very convenient, especially when you're handling hundreds, sometimes thousands of topics. Why? Because every topic exposes an endpoint. You need to keep, you have 100 topics, then you have your configuration. Your application needs to know what it's publishing, that URL. You keep track of that in your configuration, 100. Then the topics are regional resources. So if your application has to be globally accessible with low latency, you start deploying topics in all the regions, let's say 10 regions. Then you have 100 topics, 10 regions, 1,000 things that you need to keep track. Then you forgot that we support Azure AD authentication, and you are still using access keys. You have 2 access keys per endpoint. You need to keep track of those too. So again, you get the idea that it's getting harder for you to manage all that configuration. And for that, we created domains. And this is the use case, the user story for domains that you can really quick read. But the idea, this is the picture of a domain. You have a container resource that is called a domain, exposes a single endpoint, and in that domain, there can be up to 100,000 topics. Appropriately so, they are called domain topics. It's the same as a custom topic. It's a topic at the end, but you have 100,000 of them under a single endpoint. Life is better now. Then you can have a topology that's similar to what I described. You have a topic for your team, red team, your topic for your green team, for your purple team. And the way you route those events to the right domain topic is there is an extra context attribute that is called topic, and the value determines what is the domain topic name that it should land on. And it's easy. You still own all the resources, meaning you pay the bill for everything that is consumed. And then one nice aspect of domains is that you can configure event subscription obviously on the topic, but also at the domain level. So you see the picture, this right here, down here is the domain event subscription. You can subscribe to all the events that are being published to that endpoint. Obviously, you have a globally deployed solution. You have several of these domains, but it's just a handful, not thousands. So that is domains. I want you, the takeaway for domains is that this is single tenant, because this is a single tenant. It's not that your teams is different companies. It's single tenant. You want simplicity at a scale. Those are the key words. Use domains. Usually you use domains when you are creating a platform for the whole organization. So that is what domains is. Okay, then we have another use case. There's sometimes you want to consume events from external entities. And external means a service that is, it doesn't have an Azure resource provider, meaning it's not an Azure service. It can be still hosted on Azure, but for all practical matters is an external system. And that we call the feature that enables these partner events, because we like to use the word partner in Microsoft. So those partners, external entities sending events to us, usually are SaaS providers, can be an ERPs, can be a platform, but it's usually multi-tenant. So it needs to be landing events from different organizations in Azure. How does it look like? The topology is that, let's start with the right-hand side, the green resources, is what a consumer, subscriber, a customer will get. I, as a customer, I still get that topic that where the events land, and where I can subscribe, create event subscriptions, and start receiving events. On the partner side, in order to publish events, I have some infrastructure deployed in my own subscription. My customers, the subscribers, don't look at that. I mean, it's in my subscription. They don't see that. They just see the magic that the events are landing. And I have, as a partner, a container kind of resource that is called a partner namespace. We have a channel. A channel is a routing resource that is, when you create a channel, it creates a partner topic in the customer Azure subscription. So they have a link lifecycle. And that is the way we route events. I mean, you publish events. There are two routing mechanisms. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, into the details. But with those routing mechanisms, an event that you publish to that single endpoint per region lands in some partner topic that belongs to some customer. And it's multi-tenant. So in the example here, organization X is in one tenant, organization Y is in another tenant, so you achieve that. So you use partner events. I mean, the key word is multi-tenant and external service. There are people that are using actually for their own organization. What they like as partner events is that there are segregation concerns. You as a publisher don't pay anything. For domains, you own infrastructure, so you are paying everything. So you may use partner events also for that, but it was not, I guess, the original intention for that. Okay, let's move on. And then we have, you want to consume events from Azure services. You do want to create event-driven solutions. You have, there are several Azure services that have been onboarded to Event Grid. You can see the list here. So you can have that. The kind of topic that we have for this kind of use case is called system topics. So we have partner topics, system topic, domain topics, and custom topics. And each of them are its own type of resource. All right. Let's move on. So I said that we support Event Grid on Kubernetes. So you are able to deploy Event Grid on Kubernetes, and we just have custom topics or just topics there. There's no domains and all that. But it's very powerful. You deploy the Event Grid on a Kubernetes cluster. It's on its own namespace. You want a Kubernetes service, meaning a series of pods, application instances, to communicate their state to other pods. So you can use Event Grid for that. Or you can be, the destination can be an Azure function, a Logic Apps, or an app service, because those services are also being able to be deployed to Kubernetes. Or really, Event Grid is in the Kubernetes cluster, but it can send events to wherever it has access to. For example, you have a custom application in your private IP space on-prem. So Event Grid can receive the event and send that event to that custom application in the same private IP space. Or it can send to, in a hybrid cloud scenario, to Azure. It can send that event to Azure Event Grid, obviously on Azure. Or Logic Apps. I mean, you create that kind of architecture according to your needs. So who is using in their solution or your customer solutions Kubernetes? Raise your hand. There are like 5. So no, I'm a little bit more than that. Okay, like maybe 8, 10. Good. So you can use Event Grid for integrating that. let's look at what we have recently released for Event Grid. The first thing that I want to tell you is that we just released Event Grid landing page. The Event Grid landing page is the central hubs where everything, oops, it's not showing, I'm showing actually in my screen the actual, the real thing. Where is, you need to escape, and then, where is my pointer? Oh, here. Okay, I think I did it. All right, this is the actual live I wanted to increase the font, but anyway, let's move on. So there are 6 cards actually. This is the landing page. We now have a new hub about everything Event Grid. And the rationale for this is that, as you can see, we have many types of resources, and it can be confusing for new users what kind of resource I'm using domains, I'm using topics, I'm using partner topics. So this landing page attempts to give you hints as to what kind of resource you should use. Your requirements are trying to be expressed in the first sentence. So for example, if you want, in the first card, you want to subscribe to events published by Azure Services, then you should be using system topics. And then the button reads Manage System Topics. So this should be helping you in decide what kind of resource you want to use for Event Grid. Also, on the left-hand side, you see that you can manage resources. And as I find my pointer, where is my pointers? There you go. As you see, here is the overview, but I can manage, I have my system topics, topic, domain, so if I click on system topics, I'm gonna see the system topics, domains, partner topics, and for example, for partner events, I have the available partners, meaning who can I receive events from? And we have right now Auth0 and Microsoft Graph API, and I'm gonna be talking shortly about that. Another nice feature is that when you search for Event Grid resources, there are many of them. For example, you select Event Grid topics, it's gonna land on the same page with the topics selected and showing your Event Grid topics. Again, we're really happy. I hope that this helps. We want your feedback. You're gonna see the email. If you have any feedback, we want to iterate and make it simpler, help you better. All right, let's move on to the presentation. Again. And then last Thursday, we released support for new event sources through our integration with Microsoft Graph API. Now you're able to subscribe to all these resources. I'm not gonna repeat myself, but you see there are resources for Outlook, SharePoint, Teams, Azure Active Directory, cloud printing, Microsoft Conversations, and security alerts. So this is something that we expect that is going to get some traction. I mean, you're going to start using that. Azure AD was events were something that were requested often. And if you want to learn more, for example, ideas on use cases, you can reach to that aks.ms. You can take a picture of that, and you get more information and pointers to our documentation. And this is released, our feature, partner events, is public preview, but on the side of Graph API, it is still private preview. If you want to use it, if you want to try it, or help us try it, send me an email, askgraphandgrid, with separated by dot, at service eventgrid.microsoft.com. Who would be interested? Anyone? This feels that there is one hand, two hands, three hands, so there are a couple. Actually, there are more. Good, great. Send me an email, please. I want to work with you. All right, some other features. Azure Health Data Services now is Azure service that you can receive events, subscribe to. The partners that are publishing events, now they have the ability to announce what event types they are publishing, so that we call that feature inline event type definitions. We have customer audit logs, cloud event support for functions trigger. Some customer requested, hey, if I'm sending events to Event Hub, I want they to land in a specific partition. We now have that support for that. Also, another customer, Digital Twins, said, oh, I need to know for custom topics and domains if you support cloud event schema. Right now, what we're doing is pushing events in cloud event schema, and if that doesn't work, then it's Event Grid schema that you are using, that topic is using. So now we have an HTTP options for interrogating and returning what the schema is supported. And lastly, we started the deprecation of Event Grid on IoT Edge. That should be fully retired by March 2023. Okay, let's look at what features you should see in the next weeks and months. First thing is that partner events is going to be released as GA. In the interest of time, I don't want to get too much into details, but it's becoming GA very soon. Actually, as we speak, well, they're sleeping now, but in these days, we're releasing the API. You're going to see that first. Then in a couple of weeks, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, you're going to see SDKs, and then at the end, CLIs. Okay? That is coming pretty soon. And then another thing that is coming soon in a matter of weeks. After working with SAP for like a year and a half, we're now going to have the ability to receive events from SAP applications into Event Grid so that you can react to them. Who has customers or you have SAP installations in your organization? Can you raise your hand? Great. So now you're going to have an option to integrate with those applications on Azure. Or actually even elsewhere, you can receive the event on Event Grid on Azure, and then you can route it to whatever you want. If you are interested in participating in the private preview, please send me an email, askgrid@microsoft.com. Actually, you can use that for anything, askgrid@microsoft.com. I want to hear from you. Okay, let's move on. Other features that we have. Tribal Group is going to be a partner. Tribal Group is dedicated to the education industry. Actually, they are here close out of Bristol. In a couple of months, they should be integrated. Media Ballet and Media Management Company should be integrated to send events by September. Azure Policy has been a service that has been integrated for a while. So the ability to receive event notifications because of your compliance or not of their policies that you set, you're able to do it now. But in the near future, you're gonna the host is wider. Now, right now we support Azure, at the Azure subscription level. We're gonna be supporting at the management group level, so it's gonna be probably simpler for you. We have always onboarding new services. We have, you're going to have the ability to subscribe to events for VMs and VM scale set, resource state, lifecycle, and health events. So that is coming in a couple of months, 1-2 months. And then we're investing heavily, and then Clemens alluded to this, on event discovery, schema registry. That should be towards the end of the year, next year. And finally, we're planning to have GA for Event Grid on Kubernetes next year or so. All right. So let's look at the demo. What I want to demo is our integration with Graph API. I'm going to be updating. So the scenario is that I am an admin as a tenant. I'm going to updating a user that's going to be known to Graph API. How you subscribe to receive events is by creating Graph API subscription. If you're familiar with that, it's simple. It's a programmatic experience. Graph API doesn't have a portal experience, so you need to code. And when you create a Graph API subscription, and automatically a partner topic is created in your Azure subscription. And then from that point on, you can create your event subscription. And for the purposes of demo, I have a web application that we're going to show those events. Okay? Let's go there. If I can. Okay. Taking a while. This is remoting into my desktop, or really, I'm already remoted in. It's okay. For making it quicker, I already have a partner topic created. Usually that is created, but in the interest of time, you can see. Let me find my pointer. You can see that I have a partner topic. I have 2 event subscriptions down here. I want to, in this case, I'm going to receive the user updated events because I want you to see the notification, the actual event payload. We're going to see that in this application, Azure Event Grid Viewer. Actually, for testing purposes, you can search for Azure Event Grid Viewer. You can, with a template, really quick, in 5 minutes, you install that, and you can create subscriptions and see the events. It's a quick way to test it. So you're going to see on this the actual event. And the other application that I have received the same event, but I'm not showing it. What I'm doing is getting the event, getting the user for which the event was generated, calling Graph, getting that user, and displaying some of the properties in this screen. Okay? So this application also helped me because I coded it that way, to sign in and subscribe to Graph API. So I'm going to do just that. And click OK. My user is Pancho Villa. And boom, I created a subscription. And then these are some of the properties. The user object has many, many properties, but this is just a small subset just for demo purposes. Okay, so the next thing is then I have admin access to the tenant. I have here in context my user. And that user needs to be changed, which is moving from building 44 to building 99. We click save, and in 40 seconds or so, we're going to see an event coming. Why 40 seconds? It's too long, way too long. First of all, this is integrated with Graph API. They are in Canada region, so it's slower than production. They still told me that depending on the resource, Azure, Microsoft, SharePoint, Azure AD, it depends on them how quickly they publish. Once they publish and lands on Event Grid is milliseconds. That's why this is going to take a couple of seconds. So what you can do with, for example, other use cases, when you create a user, well, there you go. We have the event. Let's take a peek. So the type is Microsoft Graph user updated event. This is the source of the event. Well, is the tenant and the application. And then we have the time at which the event was generated. An important aspect is, again, I grab this user. This is the user and the user ID, sorry, this one. and I go to using the Graph SDK and read it, and then boom, I print the state here. So you see, it changed to building 99. I can do the same, and for example, let's move it back to building 44. I save it. Again, it's gonna take some, collapse this. There's gonna be another event coming. This time I'm gonna just show this, and another line will show here. But that's basically what we have for Event Grid. Well, the event comes in, there you go. Just landed. We're really excited with this integration with Graph API. Please give it a try. Send us an email. We want to hear your feedback. And lastly, let's go back to the presentation. This was my backup, so slides in case something happened. Yeah, send us an email. We want to hear from you. If after this conversation you start thinking about how you can use Event Grid, I'm available here. I'm going to be here until obviously tomorrow. Reach out to me. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your scenario. I will tell you if Event Grid is the right broker for you, or maybe another broker, Service Bus, Event Hubs. Okay? Well, thank you very much, everyone. Oh, and before, any questions? So I want to give you an opportunity. Yes?
Does JetBrains also work on an on-premise OpenShift platform?
On-premise?
OpenShift.
Yeah, so you can deploy the Event Grid to OpenShift cluster, and yes, actually there are several installations.
Just Arrow, but also on-premise.
Yeah, it can be everywhere the Kubernetes is installed. You can deploy it. Correct. Yeah, doesn't need to be on Azure. By the way, the Kubernetes cluster can be anywhere. Obviously, we need to have network access, but anywhere. Mm-hmm. Yep. Sorry. The question was, I guess, with my answer, it was, is he has an OpenShift Kubernetes cluster on premises? Is we could install Event Grid on that? And the answer is yes. And your question?
Yeah, it might not be within your scope, I mean, for Event Grid specifically, but for instance, there are many Azure components today that are not integrated fully with Event Grid. For instance, if we take Azure File Share, it's not subscribing any events to Event Grid, and it would be very helpful to implement the claim check concept with Event Grid there.
Yeah. So the question is, hey, I want Azure File Share to emit events so that I can integrate with that. The answer is, we really, really want that. We work hard with our other Azure services. We're a federation. There's not an autocracy that we need to work with them. And sometimes it's great is you reach out to us, but also reach out to Azure File Share. Tell them, I need events. And then they can work with us. But the Azure File Share is a popular demand. We have reached to them. I want to talk to you. I want to get some information so that I can get back again to Azure File Share.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I already issued a ticket to the user's voice for Azure File Share.
Let's talk. Let's talk. Please reach out to me, and then we'll. So I want that to happen. Yes, there is a question on the back, and you have to shout because I don't hear very well.
Solas event mesh. The SAP event mesh is based on that. Will you have support for Solas as well?
Sonas, it's the first time I hear it, so I guess the answer is no, we don't support that. But SAP Event Mesh, yes, it's the broker through which we integrate it, yes.
Solas is the SAP event mesh is the implementation, is one implementation of Solas event mesh.
Okay, I need to check on that, but SAP Event Mesh, is that the broker that we integrated with. Yeah. But if you are interested in that integration, send me an email and we can talk more. Any other questions? And I want to also be mindful of the time. Would you please shout? And there is a mic coming, actually.
I'm audible. So in case Azure services are subscribing to, listening to the events, so let's say I have a logic app, I have an option of a blob trigger as well as an event trigger. Is there any difference in terms of performance, or is just kind of subset, blob trigger is subset of event trigger?
Oh, I need to get back on performance and the differences. I don't have that data out of the top of my head. Sure. I can tell you again, Event Grid by itself is super quick. It's a matter of milliseconds. Sometimes we depend more on those latency on the publisher side than the Event Grid. The Event Grid in the happy path, the destination is available, accepting events. We receive it, and boom, it's really less than 1 second.
That's fine. Yeah, because we do have, we don't need to create the event grid as a separate resource if we are just listening to a blob trigger. I was wondering why do we need,
yeah, you can have that integrated with blob triggers without event broker. It's a different kind of integration. Mm-hmm. It's not an event what you're receiving, but if your requirements are met, then you're happy with that solution. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Right. Cool. I think I'm mindful also of the next presentation, but thank you very much. If you have any other questions, please reach out to me. I'm going to be here. Thank you.
Covey.co